I'd like to discuss clay rendering, a non-photorealistic rendering technique. Use clay rendering to simulate a physical model made of foam core. Clay renderings are almost all white, and they feature subtle lighting and shadow. They allow you to concentrate on the architectural form by ignoring the materiality and lighting conditions. Clay renderings are relatively easy to set up, and they yield very attractive results. So let's get started. Open the Solaire sample file. This is a design by Michelle Kaufman for a manufactured home, and I found it on Google's 3D Warehouse. Do a test render. This is done by the scan line. Now we'll set up a clay rendering. Go to the Lights category and create a skylight. It doesn't matter where you place the skylight. This gizmo is a placeholder that represents a sky dome. The skylight provides even illumination everywhere in this hemisphere. By default, the sky color is set to pure white, and that's what you want for a clay rendering. But this is only half of the story. Go to the Render Scene dialog next, and click on the Advanced Lighting tab. Select the Light Tracer. Now this lighting plugin is only available in 3ds Max, so Viz users can't use this technique. I'll just stick with all the default settings and click Render. It's not going to take very long, and we're going to get our first attempt at a clay rendering. But we're going to encounter a couple of problems. Remember, as I said, clay renderings are usually almost all white, and already we're seeing areas of pure black. So I'm going to cancel this. So what we're seeing right now is a mixture of some texture maps, which look okay, and some areas of pure black. To understand why this is happening, let's open the material editor and sample the material off of the object. The entire building model here is a single object called Solaire, and thus its material is a multi-sub-object material with many submaterials. If you are working in a model that is composed of multiple objects, you can collapse it to a single object very easily. Simply select one of the objects and collapse it to a mesh. Then attach all of the other objects to that object, and you'll end up with one object that has a multi-sub-object material assigned, just like this one. I'll open the navigator so that we can look through the different submaterials. Notice that the ambient color is set to pure black. This is the reason that we're having problems with the clay render, because the ambient color is black. And that's true on all of these submaterials. To fix this issue, you can change the ambient color to pure white. That would be very tedious to do for each one of these 32 submaterials, so I've written a Max script that automates the process for you. Go to the Utilities tab and click on Max script. Run the script, and it's called Ambient White.ms, and it should be in the Solaire sample file folder. It has a utility Max script interface, which means that it's available in this drop-down right here. It's called Fix Materials for Clay Render. When you select that, you'll see this little interface appear at the bottom of the Utilities panel. Select the object, and that's all there is to it. Let's just go back and verify what it's done for us. Open the Material Editor, go to the Navigator, and check out the different submaterials. They all have white as their ambient color now. So now if we go ahead and do another test render, we should have fixed this problem that we had right here with this black, and it's looking a lot more like a clay render. But there's one other thing we need to do. I'll just let this process for you. So right now we're seeing a mixture of a clay render and a render that has materials in it. Remember I said the point of the clay render was to ignore materials and concentrate on the form. So what we have here is kind of a hybrid. And this might have its uses. But if you want to get a pure clay render, go back to the Render Scene dialog and go to the Renderer tab. Uncheck Mapping, and you'll get rid of all the texture maps. Do another render, and we're going to get a pure clay render at this point. So it's all white. It looks a lot like a foam core model that was painstakingly created. And we can get this, as you can see, relatively quickly. Now I'm rendering this at a very low resolution just for the test. Let's zoom in a little bit on the door and see what kind of quality we have. Choose Blow Up Render Type and do another test render, but this time resize the blow up region to focus in on this door area. This will allow us to spot any artifacts that may be occurring with the clay render should we decide to render it at the entire scene out at a larger resolution. And I suspect that we will have some artifacts or blotchy areas. Overall, it looks pretty good, but we can improve the quality if we render it at higher resolution. There are some blotchy areas that you can see kind of around here. If you have that problem, you can smooth it out by increasing the settings in the light tracer. Go to Advanced Lighting and increase the number of rays per sample, say to 1,000, to get greater quality and detail. However, this is going to increase the render time. You can also increase the filter size, and this will smooth out any artifacts that you have. And this doesn't really increase render time. You can get higher quality if you decrease the initial sample spacing. I'll set it to 4x4. And I'll go to the Common tab and render it out at a higher resolution. I'm going to cancel that and choose the View Render Type so that I can render the entire image. And let's see what it looks like. So there you have it. This rendering took 4 minutes and 7 seconds to complete. Use clay renderings when you want to focus on the architectural form and create an abstract look. Clay renderings aren't really suitable for interiors because they use the skylight that illuminates from the outside in. However, it is possible to use this technique in an interior if you remove the roof and ceiling. Or you can create a section by removing half of the building and illuminating from the outside in.